welcome to this live stream today on YouTube from my music room in Debain, Ontario, Canada. I'm probably going to have a little trouble with working with all these cameras today, so you're going to have to bear with me as I get through all that. But today our main goal here is just to look at different reed organs and harmoniums. What do they sound like, and what do they, what they do? What are the differences? So we know that a reed organ has a keyboard like a piano or a pipe organ, but they're definitely not played like one. Like a piano, you play with the harder you hit the keys, the louder it gets. With these instruments, the more you move your feet, the louder it gets. So it completely changes the way you play this type of keyboard. So I'm going to show 6 different instruments today that you're going to see how they interact differently. You're going to see how the treadles work and some of the things that a reed organ has that you might not be aware of. So to start, we're going to go to this Berlin organ here. This was my first restoration that I've done. And it was made in 1897. It's a suction instrument. And with the expression on this one, if I want it to go softer, I stop treadling. And you have to do this ahead of time as you're playing. So I'm going to show a song here. It's a simple version of Largo from the New World Symphony by Dvorak. It'll give you an example of how the feet work with the sound that you hear from this reed organ. Some of the treadle differences in here you may see, especially at the end. I always call it a 2-foot fade, where the holding the last note, if I go down both feet at the same time, it will it's a lot easier to control the fade down to nothing, because if you're changing your feet while you're doing that, you might get that when your feet transfer from one to the other, you may hear that little extra air going through. It's harder to keep it level. But using both feet at the same time, you can decrescendo very gradually until it's nothing. So, Lori, are there any questions? Lori is with us, my wife, and she's going to be handling the questions today. I don't know if there's any comments or questions so far, Lori?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. Okay, let's bring her on.
I just wanted to let you know we have viewers from the USA, Brazil, Poland, Germany, Portugal, and the Netherlands.
Oh, nice.
So
Wow.
far. We have a question from Brazil, your friend from Brazil. What is the difference of the sound between reed organ and harmonium?
You're going to see that very soon. The next instrument I'm going to show is the Debain instrument, and you'll see the huge difference between the sound. Harmoniums, they tend to be a little more bright sounding and a little more, I guess you just say bright sounding than a reed organ. Reed organs tend to be more mellow, but you will hear that very soon.
We also have a question from Jose. What is the sound register more similar to the principal in the organ?
That would be the diapason and the melodia on this particular instrument, although it still has a reed organ sound to it. An example would be this. Different organs will have different sounds with the principal stops and melodia stops, or principal diapason, melodia. They often call them the same thing throughout a reed organ. So hopefully that can answer your question.
Great. And we also have a Canadian here too.
Yay!
And that's all the questions so far.
Okay, great. Well then let's move to the Debain instrument. I'm just going to move my camera. Bear with me a second. So the Debain instrument, it was made in around 1855 is where we had guessed that it was manufactured, and it was made in Paris, France. It has 3 ranks of reeds, and the difference with this one is it's very much like it has an expression stop and percussion stops, which is quite different for American reed organs that we're used to, suction reed organs. This one is using pressure, and the sounds of it can be played similar to a suction reed organ. Example, if I just use the 8-foot stops, this would be similar to the principal or melodeon. It's called the cor anglais and the flute. And I'm using it just like a regular reed organ at this time. I'm going to get my camera changed here. I don't think Lori wants to be on the entire time. There. Okay. So this is how the treadles, I can use it just like a reed organ. I can fill the reservoir and then stop and play. That's using expression. So when I not using expression, when I play it this way, the music becomes rather flat. You can't control the accents like as if the expression is on. Because here's an example. It's just loud all the way through. if I turn the expression on, what that does now, it completely disengages the reservoir. So if I play a chord and push with the treadle, so I can go very soft, or loud, or soft again, instantly. I always refer it to, it's like driving a sports car where it just responds to every little movement you make on the treadle. It affects your music. So now I can play it with accents. Gives you a whole different control of this instrument, which a suction reed organ will not have. But there's more to this instrument yet. It's called the percussion stop. The percussion stop is a mechanical stop. It's basically a piano key, or it turns it into a piano, where the key is a piano hammer, and it comes up from the bottom, and it hits the reed tongue, and gives you a little plunk noise. Not very loud, not very noticeable. But when you place wind on that reed, when that hammer hits, the moment that reed opens up, it gives you a very, very fast speaking instrument. It almost sounds electronic, like you're at a 1970s disco. Like it's hard to explain. It sounds electronic. Yet this instrument is from 1854, 1855. So I'm going to play Fanfare by Lemons again. This is with expression and percussion. I had a little problem there. I lost my spot. Anyway, but that gives you an example of how this instrument sounds so different from the suction instruments. So, Lori, how are we doing over there? Are there any more questions? Yep. Yep, okay.
Okay, let's just scroll back up here. Vladimir wants to know, how hard is it to restore an organ to working condition you might find at an estate sale, and can a hobbyist do it at home?
I didn't find it overly hard. The hardest part was my pride to ask questions. It was just, I had to ask people questions. There's one fellow that I befriended over the time, and he's a fantastic restorer, and he helped me out on this old Yahoo news group. His name's Casey Pratt, and I'm going to call him out on that because he is a fantastic restorer, and I've always aspired to get to the type of restorations that he has done. And so I've taken my time with it at learning. I knew nothing about these instruments. I didn't know that there was differences between pressure or suction. You didn't even know that there was a suction instrument. And as I learned more about these things, I was just a hobbyist, and I still am a hobbyist, and I'm still doing this today. So there are Facebook groups to help you out with this. Reed Organ Tech on Facebook. That one's very helpful. There's the Reed Organ Society that you can ask questions on there, and usually we can get help from that. But the most part is it just takes time to learn how to restore these, and to just take your time and to do it right, and to get the right questions asked and get the right answers. This instrument here has not been restored yet. It is still 100% original. So it's leaking a little bit. There's a few little problems with it. I noticed there was one section here that came loose as I was playing it, so I had to quickly flip that back. But I'm getting off topic here. To answer your question, it's not difficult. It just takes time, and it's a great hobby. And anyone can do it, I think, as long as you have a little bit of mechanical knack.
Okay, there's a comment here from Carl. He says, thanks for all your videos, Rodney. I have used many of them to work on my 1916 John P. Anderson reed organ here in Denmark.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
I might have said that wrong, but...
No, the Anderson?
Right. There is a bit of a delay. I just wanted to mention that to people. So if they're asking questions and we may not get to them right away, we will do our best here. Okay, where are we? Oh, Eduardo is asking another question. Why is the harmonium sound bright?
Good question. I haven't really got a real answer for you, but I can only assume. It has to do with the air pressure and the way the reeds are designed in their own cells. And everything else is also pitched higher on these. Like middle C is way down here. Like it's just a different range, and the pressure reeds just seem to scream more. I guess that's not really the word I should use, because there are some harmoniums that are very mellow and beautiful, and they can be played mellow and beautiful, even a bright instrument, as long as you don't overwind it. But mainly it is because of the air pressure coming up from the reed. The way they're designed, the reeds are just under the keyboard here, and the wind comes up and it carries the wind with it, and it just sounds brighter.
Okay. There's a question from Michael. Rodney, if you have a suction reed organ, can you use accents on the treadles the same as you can a European harmonium? I don't know if I caught that last section properly.
The accents, yeah, like on this, with expression on this, with the accents. You can do that on the harmonium. On the suction reed organ, you can kind of do it, but it's much more sluggish. You can get a small accent, not a drastic accent like this one. If you use 2 feet at the same time and kick, then you can get an accent from a suction reed organ, but you have to be a little ahead of time before you're ready to hit it, because it takes time for that air to get in the reservoir, and it goes more like it's more loud. It's just slower and more sluggish to give you your accent. It's just not instant like this. It can be done just differently and not as drastic.
We have some really nice people answering questions here too.
Great.
which is helpful.
Get a discussion going. This is awesome.
Yeah, and they're they're good. They're good answers as well. Is percussion generally only on harmonium?
Yes.
So,
You're not going to find it on all harmoniums. This one I was very lucky to come across that it does have a percussion. Many do not because it's an expensive addition at the time to add this type of mechanical feature. So you're not going to see it as common, but they are out there, and most people don't know what they are. But as soon as I see one, if I ever see one for sale that has a percussion on it, I get quite excited because it is rare to find one here in Canada. Europe, a little different. They're a lot more common.
okay. Another question from, I'm not sure how to say your name. I'm not going to try, but what is the reason that the harmonium wasn't so popular in the USA and almost everyone had a reed organ at home?
It had a USA had in the 1870s when reed organs really became popular. There was a really high tariff placed on the reed organs to be imported into the USA by the USA government. So if they wanted, even if Canada wanted to send their reed organs to USA, there was an additional 35 to 40% tariff added to the cost of the reed organ. So the salespeople in the USA generally wanted to sell the American reed organs. It was very rare for them to actually purchase a brand new reed organ from Europe or Canada in the USA during the 1850s to especially during the 1870s and throughout the 1890s. So part of the reason you won't find many is because they're of the expense that was added to them. And same with Canadian instruments. You'll see them in there, but usually the Canadian instruments you find in USA often come through Scotland or England and then come back into USA after that by people who move. And the same reason goes with harmoniums. This one here, we believe it came into USA not by new, but by somebody who moved there, and then they sold it, and eventually it made its way to Canada until I found it. So it's all multifaceted here between expense and just generally it was hard to get them across the ocean to USA.
Okay. Just just give me a second here.
No problem.
David Turner says, your channel inspired me to get a reed organ and found a good one earlier this year.
Awesome. Congratulations. I'm sorry I inspired you to get into trouble like that, but it's good to hear. I'm always happy to hear it.
Eduardo's saying, I'm sorry, but I always have questions. That's okay, Eduardo. You keep asking away. Let's see. Oh, Zane Cooper, could you demonstrate what the knee levers do on both types of instruments and how you use them?
Okay. I will show the knee levers on this one. They open up the swells right here. You can see that. This section right here. So if I were to open this, it would open it up. Unfortunately, Zane, since this instrument is not restored, if I open this, it's going to stick open and I won't be able to close it. So I can't show you an example on this one. And I have no other harmoniums at the moment to show that. But I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind. On next time I get to the next suction instrument, I'll show that on the Dominion next. That is going to be displayed next. And I'll show how those knee levers work along with it. With the knee levers themselves, on a harmonium, it just basically makes it even more brighter. I'll simulate that by using the forte stops. Forte. I don't know if it's too distorted. You may not hear the difference through microphones because it's not the same hearing it as if you were here in this room. But I will show that on the next instrument, how the knee levers work with the grand organ and the knee swell. Okay? Any other, Lori, or should we just move on to the Dominion?
I have one more,
okay.
But I need you to come over here for it.
Okay, just one moment. I'm just going to walk over here.
Because I don't know how to pronounce that. This is from
Horrigal. Okay, that's a Horrigal. Is it a good reed organ? Is that from Eduardo?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Horrigal. Yes, Eduardo. Horrigal is a good instrument. It's European, and it's a little more bright than what an American instrument would be, but it all depends on the type you get. I think they made some or pressure instruments as well. In Brazil, you're mostly going to find that kind of instrument where it's Horrigal. I can't remember all the different kinds there, but they're usually out of Germany, where you will find in Brazil. But yes, it is a good instrument. Okay, so I'm going to move over to the Dominion organ now. Thank you, Lori, for taking those questions. So, the Dominion organ, just a moment while I move my cameras. Oh no, your microphone's always on.
No, I mean the camera.
Yeah, your camera's off now. Okay, so bear with me while I move my cameras around here. This is the Dominion organ. It was made in 1910 in Bowmanville, Ontario, Canada. It contains 440 reeds with 23 stops. So far, the issues with me showing you the treadles and how they work with the sound is you really can't see how much pressure I'm playing on these or applying to the treadles. It's very hard to show that. The only way I could think of showing you is using, there's on the side of this instrument here, there's a bellows gauge. So I have a camera on that bellows gauge for you to see how much pressure I'm applying to the reservoir in conjunction with the treadles, in conjunction to what you hear. So so here's the reservoir gauge, and obviously the treadles are below here. Just straighten that up a bit. And as I play this, turn my bench up a little higher. When I hit the treadle, you're going to see the reservoir gauge move. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now it's fully filled. I can play. It'll stay up there. This instrument is fairly airtight. If I play now, the reservoir drops back down to nothing. So you'll be able to see, as I'm putting more pressure on, it's going to be bouncing all over the place because I'm changing the music all the time. So this is going to be a simple hymn here. Oh, and Zane, your question. There's knee levers here for those that are not sure what they do. This one here on the right side, it opens up all the swells, just like I showed you on the harmonium there. It opens those wooden levers up and makes it louder. Or then in my opinion, it's just brighter. This instrument, this lever here is called the grand organ. It pulls out all these stops without me pulling them. So I can go from just a very soft sound to full organ just by sliding my knee over very quickly. And then I can release the grand organ and I'm back to the soft sound again if I want to make drastic fast changes. So the example I'm going to play here is just a simple hymn called Savior Like a Shepherd Lead Us. Probably need to drain that reservoir first. Yes, I had it pumped way too high. Okay, here we go. So I don't know if that just confused you more, or did it actually help to see what's really happening there? Were there any questions on that, Lori?
Not necessarily that yet, because there's a little behind in time here, but there is some questions.
Okay.
First of all, I already know the answer to this, but they're wondering if they would love it if you could play a piece like The Lost Chord, and they have a couple other suggestions.
Probably
But I
not.
know where the piece of music is and that it can't be gotten to very easily right now.
Yes, because there's an issue with that because I have equipment all over on the other side of my room here, and that's where all my music is, and I can't really get to that right now. I would love to play something like that again for you, but unfortunately, probably not today. Sorry about that, but thank you for that suggestion, and maybe we can have like a get together sometime in the future. Just anybody wants to come in, we just play music, and we can just enjoy that. Is there any other, Lori?
Yep. Let's see here. Neil wants to know, he has a question. It's a question about restoration.
Okay.
Do you know of any substitutes to hide glue that don't use animal products?
Not off the top of my head. There's fish glue, if you'd rather use something like that. But it is considered animal, I guess. I thought there was something that somebody had a concern over. I can't think of what it was right now. If you're not sure about using like a red like mammal glue, such as deer or cow or horse glues, there is fish glue available, which it's harder to work with because it's cold. Easy in some ways and harder in other ways. It has the hot hide glues have an instant set time where you can work very quickly with bellows and things like that, where the fish glue is much slower. But I don't think I can answer your question on that right now, if there's any other products outside of that other than fish glue.
James wants to know, on the Karn, which you helped me restore, I find it hard to regulate the sub-bass to produce a smooth tone and not a foghorn. We can relate to that. Could you
Yes.
demonstrate the sub-bass on a Karn, please? James from the UK.
Or again, that's probably going to have to be done at another time because that instrument right now is buried. I had to rearrange my music room here to fit everything in, and I can't get at that Karn right now. The sub bass on this Dominion is very similar to the sub bass on the Karn, where you can't use it like the Berlin. It just, like if I wanted to play something soft, it overpowers. So there isn't much you can do about it other than if you can regulate how wide or how open the pallets go on the sub bass. If you shrink them down a little bit so they just open up slightly when you press the key, then it'll be a lot softer and it won't. I know what you mean by the foghorn. They can be really loud. Karn tends to have loud sub basses as well. They're smaller reeds, so they're going to have a lot more harmonics to them, and you'll get more of a foghorn effect rather than the Berlin instrument to my right here will be. They're huge reeds. These are. I got one here actually. They use orchestral, like it's a large reed. This is a D sharp. And the C is a little bit bigger yet. Karn will be maybe about 80% smaller than this one. Or sorry, 20% smaller. But they will tend to have a louder foghorn sound to them unless you can get those pallets closed a little bit more. Thanks, James.
Okay, Neil has another question.
Hey, Neil.
Just out of curiosity, how do you manage your collection? Do you typically keep most of the organs you restore? And how do you decide what organ you are going to restore next?
Well, I haven't actually restored one of my own instruments in a while now. I do all my restorations I do as a volunteer for a future museum. My own instruments, I have an in-out rule. I have just my room here in my music room, and if I can't fit it in this room, then I can't put it in. There has to be an instrument that goes. I could have put them upstairs, but I'm happily married, and Lori, she likes them too, but right, Lori?
Right.
But we can't have them take over our whole house, or else it'll become more of a hoard rather than a collection. So I try to keep instruments that are very different from each other, and ones that I enjoy all the same way. And we'll get into more instruments soon here, as soon as and I'll show you by what I mean by different, because there's a very different instrument that is coming up next.
And just side note, I'm usually the one that says, "Oh no, we have to keep that one."
Yes, I offer to make room for some, and Lori just, nope, she likes them. I'm blessed that way, that's for sure.
Let's see. Oh, and Neil just wanted to add to the fact that the quality of your videos is outstanding. Studio quality sound. The stream has been no exception. Multiple camera angles, picture in picture. Wow. So that's good to know, because we weren't sure how it was going to
Yeah, the only
go
problem
today.
I'm having is keeping the audio synchronized to the video for you tech guys out there. I'm using separate audio capturing techniques with all these different USB cameras, and it's been a real challenge to keep them synchronized. So hopefully my OBS studio that I'm using will maintain the proper capture rates and will not get too far off. Thanks.
Joel says, great demo of what you can do with pedaling, resuction, or pressure and expression that I don't imagine you can do with a vacuum pump.
Exactly. If you put a vacuum motor on an instrument, then you basically remove all expression. It can be done, and there's nothing terribly wrong with it if that fits your lifestyle or if it fits your tastes. If you just like to play music the way you like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. For me, I like the expression that these things do, so a vacuum pump wouldn't quite be for me.
There's a question here, but I think it's being lost in the translation, so I'm not exactly sure.
Well, you can read it for me as literally, as you see it.
Have you ever, and then it looks like restaurant, maybe restored,
Yeah.
a pipe organ?
No, I haven't. I've taken one apart with some experienced friends who work with pipe organs, but I've never restored a pipe organ. My interest will always remain with reed organs because there's very few people around that can do this. So I like to be different and do that just with the reed organs.
Joey says, greetings from Florida. Your channel also inspired my interest in reed organs, and to date I have restored 4.
Awesome.
My favorite is a large Carpenter, nearly identical to your Berlin, with 2-foot piccolo.
Yes, you'll love that. I played a Carpenter, just a very similar Carpenter with a 2-foot piccolo. I think it also had a grand Opal Clyde or something like that in it as well. And they're great instruments. It's a good choice that you have there.
He also says, I also wondered about the 16-foot rank on the Dominion's upper manual. Does it go down to the bottom F? And if so, how do those notes sound in relation to the sub bass?
Oops, I just kicked my camera. Okay, I can show you that. So this is on the top end, or the bottom end of the 16-foot contrabass. It only goes low as C. When I go B, it goes up the octave. It'll be the same pitch as that, but just a little softer. So it only goes to C. Comparing that with the sub bass, it's much softer. It is handy to have if you're playing. Let's see if I just do a soft celeste up here. I can add bass with it without being overpowering like the sub bass. So it's just a little more balanced, having that extra 16 foot there. But to answer your question, it only goes to C.
Okay. Last question from David Turner. My
David?
organ has a broken reed, a tongue snapped in half somehow. Is this fixable, or is there some place a replacement can be purchased?
It is not fixable, but you can, like, not fixable as in you can't fix that crack. You have to either replace the tongue if you want to keep the same frame. It's so much easier just picking up a spare reed. If you were to go on Facebook on the Reed Organ Tech page, you can ask that question, and you may have somebody that will be willing to sell it to you. Usually they're only just a few dollars, or even just give it to you and send it to you and give you a couple of extras for that. They are not as uncommon as many people think. So if something breaks, you wouldn't have to worry about it too much. You can be covered, and I'm sure someone can get one to you to replace that broken reed.
Okay, that's it for now.
Okay, so I'm going to move to the next one. Just going to move down to my laptop level here. The next instrument is L. Fried Molich. It's the oldest instrument in my collection. It was made circa 1820 is where it was estimated at in Germany. The difference with this one is it's so old, it has silver reeds. You can see it in the picture here. It's mounted on a brass block, which is then, or a brass plate, which is then on a wooden block with sheepskin. So these reeds were handmade, and you can just imagine the amount of time that was placed into fitting these in here and make these reeds sing. Also inside, there's all this notation of this here is French homework by a German student, and it goes through all the different versions of French. And there's also notes found inside in music notation. On one of the letters inside, it was a handwritten note, and it was dated February 29th, 1812. So even though this instrument is not that old, there's elements inside this instrument that is very, very old. So this is probably the oldest instrument you're going to hear for a while or around. It's not fully working condition, but mostly working condition. So I'm going to play a piece here. You're going to hear the very primitive sound on it. Some people have referred to it sounding like a chorus of kazoos, but I like it. It's just different, and you will see what I mean. The piece I'm going to play is by Hermann Wenzel. I'm going to try to pronounce this. It's called Lied ohne Worte. And we're going to move over to that instrument right now. Just get my camera set up. So it's the other side of the room here. Oh, really? Okay, you ready? Here is the primitive sounding instrument. The trick with this instrument is that there is no reservoir. And the way the treadles are set up, it's very difficult to play. It's hard to get that transfer of your pedals without it doing that. But other than that, it's a very unique instrument, and it's kind of neat to hear something that's 200 years old and it's actually working today, that you can hear how it sounded 200 years ago. Were there any questions on that? If not, I'll move right over to the Kramer. Any questions?
There's just one from Eduardo. Rodney, have you ever built a reed organ, brand Yancey?
No, I have not. No, I have not. But one day, who knows? I'm going to move my camera for the fish harmonica and move it over to the Kramer instrument now. Oh. I think I lost my control for one of my cameras. So what you see here is the rear view of the Kramer instrument. So with this instrument, because the bellows have been restored on this one, you're going to find that it's a lot more responsive than the Debain harmonium. And I can also do tremolo on this without having a tremolo stop. If you quiver your feet, like a violin player that plays a violin and they quiver their hands on the string, you can quiver your feet on the treadles and you can get that same kind of effect. Not exactly, but similar. So I'll play a chord here. So if I break that up, not sure if you can see that. That was very exaggerated. You really can't see. It's very subtle, the amount of quivering I'm doing on it. You may not see it unless you got really good eyes and a good computer screen that you can see this on the video. The other thing about this instrument is when the expression stop is on, to transfer from feet to feet. As you get to the next treadle, you have to have music playing all the time. So if you slow down, start the next one, slow down, start the next, slow down, start the next. You're doing that kind of effect with it to keep this volume steady. Your feet are always in motion as your left foot is slowing down, your right one speeds up at the same time to keep that even pressure. The bellows in this one, in the bottom, it comes channeled through the bottom, comes through the stand here, out the middle, air channel, and it comes up inside this instrument. So I'm going to play first Kiss Waltz. This is out of a Moline method book that I got from the Reed Organ Society. And I'm going to use a bit of tremolo on here with my feet. For a little instrument, it really sings loudly. It has a lot built into it for a small footprint that it has. Have we got any questions, Lori?
Speaking of footprint, TGB says bravo for those feet.
Oh, thanks, Tim. Okay, do we move on to the next one then? Or give him another 30 seconds? I know we're getting what's our time here, Lori?
Over an hour, 2 minutes.
Hour, 2 minutes. Well, I'm moving to the last instrument. Shouldn't be too much longer here. The next instrument is a bell. This is a two-manual instrument that was made around 1878, you believe. And it's very similar to what you'd find in the Dominion. The only difference is because of the age of the age of this instrument. Here's my cameras. There we go. You'll find that being 40 years older than the Dominion instrument, it has a different sound. It's a little more unrefined. It has more, I like to say, growl or grunt to the sound of this. So I'm going to play a hymn here called Abide With Me. I'm going to use a Vox Humana with this one. A Vox Humana is a spinning, it's like a tremolo on an instrument, except it just gives it a very gentle tremolo. It's not like a beater tremolo, which you would find on the Debain harmonium. That one there is just, it sounds like you're getting the Heimlich movement on your chest when it sings. It's very abrupt. This one here is a lot more gentle. with that, I'm going to go right over to the Dominion organ and play one more. And that one is going to sound just so that you hear the difference between the two back to back. So that's the instruments I have for you today. Lori, are there any other questions out over there?
Yes, Carl from Denmark
Hello, Carl.
is wondering. He says, I have been looking for one of the small folding chapel organs. Have you worked on one of those or played them?
Yes, I have restored a few of them already. They're quite common in this area, the small chapel instruments. Are you referring to the small folding ones, maybe? I have also worked on small chapel ones, small folding ones, that like portable for missionary work. And a lot of those are used for folk music these days.
Okay. Eduardo is saying, when you come to Brazil, we will arrange a concert for the organ and the string camerata I conduct.
That'd be wonderful, Eduardo. I'll see you in Sao Paulo.
Can I come too?
Obrigado. Yeah, Lori can come too.
Let's see here. Wonderful swell and dynamic control.
Thank you.
Let's see here. I'm just looking. Eric was saying, makers tried to smooth reed sound into something more like pipe sound. A Vocalion organ can be good enough to fool you.
Yes, Vocalion. I love Vocalion organs. They are quite something. They have a flute sound to them that sounds like a pipe organ. They're amazing.
Gilmer wants to know what the name of that song was.
Oh, the last one I played, it's March from Scipio, was by Handel.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's all the questions.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure having you here with me today. And great questions. And I'd like to do this again sometime.
And I'm sure he'll be reading the comments here.
Yeah, and I'll be looking over the comments again, of course. This video will be available live or later on when we're all done here. So thank you again for joining me today. Thank you for your questions. And if I didn't answer your question properly, or if you're not quite sure yet, drop me a line. Visit my website at www.rodneyjancy.com, and or just look me up on Google. You'll find it, and you can drop me a line on my website. So thank you, Lori, for taking the questions and moderating all that today. And I think we can now say adieu for now. So take care, everyone, and we will see you again.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.